Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us this morning for a very important briefing with our legislative team that I guess federal and state level today. My name is John Cruikshank. I'm the chair of the South Bay City's Council of Government. And the great thing about this is we'll get a great update from our representatives. And also it gives all of you an opportunity to not only hear from them, but ask questions. So we hope that you have an opportunity to do that. Please do so. Let me introduce our Executive Director, Jackie Bacharach, to tell you more about what the South Bay City Council of Government is doing currently. Jackie.
Thank you so much. I'm going to run through my update. And yeah, thank you, Natalie. But the last time we met was about 3 months ago. So next slide. We're going to talk about what's happened in the South Bay, sort of a very, very fast snapshot. So next slide. The programs I'm planning to cover are these programs. We've been doing so much that we wanted to make sure to give you a snapshot of each program. Next slide. Our fiber network, as you're familiar with it, is up and running. We've been it's amazing. It's been 3 years already that we've actually gone live. And now we're working very hard, next slide, with the county and others on the digital divide, trying to address areas that really need to be connected because broadband has become such an important asset. We were recently awarded a grant from the California Public Utilities Commission, where we're going to be doing a needs assessment, a market assessment, and we're going to be looking at expanding the network into disadvantaged communities. We're very excited about this. We just found out at Thanksgiving, so we're just getting started. Next slide. Our local travel network has been meeting incredible support from community groups. We are putting in applications to implement parts of the network. And I recently spoke at the California Transportation Commission, because what's interesting is there are really no state policies or funding programs for micro-mobility zero-emission vehicles that I just saw at Christmas time. You can buy right off the shelf at Costco. So we're trying to find safe spaces to ride those vehicles, and that's what the local travel network is all about. And these slides will be in, I guess, on the website, and you can access them. Natalie also will put them in the chat. Next slide. The board voted on a sign, and so this will be the sign that will go up throughout the South Bay. We call it our rolling turtle, and it's how we will identify the local travel network streets when the cities start designating them, and we implement the project. Next slide. Transportation projects, we're working with Gateway COG on goods movement issues. Since the 710 will not be expanded, we want to make sure that any impacts that might come more fully into our area are understood. We're also scheduling a bus tour on March 2nd, which is going to take us to areas of the Expo line and the Gold line that are analogous to what the extension in the South Bay might look like. That bus tour is open first to elected officials and city staff, but if anybody in the legislative staff would like to join us, we're going to be leaving from our offices at 1 o'clock, and you have to have a reservation because we don't know how many places we'll have on the bus. So I'm taking reservations. So please let me know if you're interested. Next slide. Homeless services. As you know, the count was down. Our next count in the South Bay, our next count is coming up in a couple of weeks. Our client aid program, where we give actual same day or next day money to people that actually need it, has a 75% success rate. We're housing people. Without this pilot, people have to wait up to 2 to 3 weeks to get this money, and people are not getting housed the other way. So we're very excited about this program. Our programs are now contributing to about 20% of all of the positive housing outcomes. And we also have our Good News social media campaign, which is what you see over here. We're trying to send out good news on the homeless front so that people can see good things are happening. Ronson Chu is I think, on this Zoom, and he has been incredible in helping people find lodging in the rain. We have been working very hard to make sure that we have space in motels in the South Bay so that people are not stuck homeless people are not stuck in the rain and the inclement weather. So kudos to Ronson, and he's really been pushing the county, actually. Next slide. Our housing programs, we're working with money from REAP is money from SCAG, where we focus on housing planning. We're studying accessory dwelling units, commercial redevelopment into housing. And today at lunch, we're going to have an education forum where we're going to talk about the housing market. Next slide. We also, this program is being extended for another year. We're going to be getting another $585,000. And with that money, we're going to look at how our legislation for a housing trust went through, but we now have to find out what how we're going to implement it and assemble it, who the governing board's going to be, what kind of projects we're going to be funding. And so putting the flesh on the bones is going to be done in the next projects paid for by this funding. And then we're also going to expand our commercial redevelopment into housing. Next slide. Our environmental programs, you can see we do an awful lot. We have several newsletters you can sign up for. We could do about 100 presentations a year, and we have extensive social media. We try to get out the message. Our climate action and adaptation plans are being updated, and we work very diligently with our water partners to do rain barrel programs and other kinds of educational programs. Next slide. Here we go. Energy efficiency and waste. We're working on benchmarking those cities that are required to do so. We do that for the cities, and we're conducting an equipment inventory, looking at what the needs of the cities are. Instead of, we're trying to do a bottoms up where we can catalog the needs of the cities and then ask for incentive programs, instead of somebody in a higher place saying, oh, why don't we just give an incentive for such and such a thing, when cities might not really need that. We have a green business program, and those cities that are involved, Torrance, Hawthorne, and El Segundo, we are enrolling their businesses to be green and stay green. Next slide. This year, we're going to make a legislative request, and we're going to be asking for $2 million. We're having our 20th anniversary of the Environmental Services Center, which has been so successful. And what we find is that we would like to now expand the work of that center so that we can work on things like energy storage and energy walls and microgrids, and bring our area up to speed on some of the latest ways we can save money and conserve. We know that there's a budget deficit, but we actually think that with the money from the state being reduced on climate change, that this money will actually take us even farther and is even more important, because locally we can get these programs on the ground, and it's a very good investment for the state. So you'll be hearing more about that from us. Next slide. And we never have one of these without talking about our General Assembly, which is March 23rd. We're going to be talking about resilience and adaptability, and how we can address the state's goals and still and handle some of the conflicts in the state goals. How do we grow, and how do we build housing with the drought and the electric grid concerns, and what we're going to do about that. I should mention our keynote speaker is a homeboy. Gene Rodriguez is a Manhattan Beach resident. He was a former VP, I think, at Southern California Edison, and he was just confirmed by the United States Senate as a President Biden appointee. He is now the Assistant Secretary of in the Office of Electricity, working on the electric grid, and he will be our keynote speaker. So please sign up and plan to be a sponsor if you can. Next slide. That's it. Mr. Chair, I would entertain any questions and hope that if you don't ask them now, you'll ask me at any other time. Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions for our esteemed Executive Director, Jackie? You could raise the hand in the chat or the reactions. Okay, doesn't look like there's any at this time, but you'll be hanging around the entire time. So if there are questions, please feel free to ask. So our agenda has shifted a little bit just because of the people that will be here. And I'll have Natalie confirm, though, that our first representative would be Davis Hahn from State Senator Ben Allen's office. Is that correct, Natalie?
Actually, I just got a call from him. He would like to go a little bit later. He's actually going to be joining us shortly. So,
okay. Is Kirk Samuels on the meeting? Very good. So today we have Kirk Samuels representing State Senator Lola Smallwell Cuevas's office. Kirk, take it away.
All right. Well, good morning, everyone. All right, there we go. Good morning, everyone. Nice to see you all. I'm the district director for the newly elected Senator Lola Smallwell Cuevas in the District 28. And thank you for having me. So I just wanted to give a few updates about our office, where we are, what our priorities are for the year. And I know I had some questions that were sent to me, so I'm gonna try to answer them and hopefully get everyone on the same page. So we just got into our district office, which is very exciting, and we're refurbishing the office right now. We're having it repainted, redid the carpets and everything, and we're planning a swearing in ceremony for the senator in late January. So we're still trying to finalize the location. So once we get that, we want to make sure that we get the invites out to everyone. And then we're still hiring a lot of our district and capital staff. So me being the district director, we're still bringing on some policy analysts, legislative aides. We just got in our press secretary, so that's very exciting. And up in the Capitol, we have Arturo Sulisis, who is our Capitol director. So I'll get to that a little bit later on. We'll talk about this legislation that was just introduced. Speaking of which, our priorities for the year. For Senator Smallwood Cuevas, she really wants to prioritize equity and workforce discrimination, and she actually introduced SB 16, which would prohibit discrimination in housing and employment on specified basis, and provides procedures for enforcement by the Civil Rights Department. Right. So just wanted to give folks an update on that and what the priorities are and what that would look like. Now, to the questions that were sent to me, I'm assuming that we're all on the same page and aware of the questions. Do I need to reread them, or?
You could probably paraphrase them before you answer them, because maybe not everyone has the questions in front of them.
Yeah, I actually don't either. So let me.
Oh, okay. Do you want me to give you those?
Yeah. Well, I got, yeah, go ahead. I think
okay, so anyhow, one of the first questions for our state representatives is in regards to local control. And you probably know that our group, the South Bay City Council of Governments, we're always interested in local control and maintaining as much as possible. As was mentioned, you know, we have our homeless and success that we're able to do here with Ronson Chu and other things such as housing. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about the senator's positions, or maybe some of the activity that she would have around helping us with maintaining some balance and local control.
All right. So when it comes to local control and just the housing attitude in Sacramento, speaking with our capital director, we do feel like there's a big push to answer California's housing crisis, and there's a strong prevailing attitude in Sacramento that the way that we do this is just by increasing supply by whatever means. And that kind of alludes to the ADUs and the JADUs to try to address this. Also, there's an issue that I remember coming up, like what can cities do to have a meaningful dialogue of what they can and cannot do? And so our strong suggestion was that if the cities could do anything, it would be to provide the folks in Sacramento with an alternative vision for what a solution to the housing crisis might be. So we know that the legislators are motivated to do anything or just something to address the housing, and throwing the door open to developers is easy. So demonstrating alternatives that capitalize on regional partnerships to provide affordable housing, that would be a way to responsibly, and it would be respectful to the needs of the existing communities that can go a long way in changing the narrative and the narrative around this issue.
Kirk, that's excellent advice. You don't need to go through all the questions we had just because of time constraints. Is there anyone that's joining us that has questions for the senator's office? just go ahead and raise your hand and I'll let you ask that question. All right, you might be off the hook on this one. I don't see any questions. Any last thoughts, Kirk, before you go?
No, I did want to talk about the disasters too, because I understand that
Please.
I mean, it's a hot topic. So once again, the governor's budget just came out the other day. So we know that it contained reductions in spending to many programs that were designed to help the drought and with wildfires, but we feel like it's really important to know that these reductions are in the context of the 2022-2023 budget, which is one of the largest budgets in the state's history. So even though there will be a lot of cuts, there's still a lot that we could do to prevent and respond to these emergencies.
Oh, that's great advice. And in the chat, someone had asked if you could put your contact information in the chat for us.
Sure thing. I will put my district email.
Okay, thank you so much, Kirk. Any other thoughts? Or are you done?
I'm good to go.
Okay, thank you so much for your time this morning. We really appreciate it. And please stay on the meeting if you have time. All right. Okay, very good. So it looks as if Davis Hahn is here from Senator Ben Allen's office. So Davis, if you want to go ahead.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. Great to be here with you. It sounds like Kirk gave you a pretty good rundown of the current budget situation, which is probably the biggest news out of Sacramento this week. As of right now, the senator is working to hammer out his bill package for the coming year, but we have not reached the deadline yet to submit our bills. That will be coming in a couple weeks. So I know we were working hand in hand with the COG last year to pass our South Bay Housing Trust bill. And I would encourage if any of the member cities, any of the council members here have proposals or ideas for legislation they would like us to consider, there is still time, so please do reach out to us, but do it as soon as you can. Just a few other updates from our office. We are planning on hosting on February 1st a tax preparation webinar for our constituents that'll be geared towards individuals, and we're looking to add a small business component as well. You'll be able to find information for that event on the senator's social media. We'll be sending it out via email too once we have an RSVP link ready in the coming days. And that will basically just be going over any changes that folks should be aware of as they're getting ready to file their taxes for the 2022 tax year. Beyond the budget news, I don't really have too many other updates to share, but I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone has, and I'll be staying on for the rest of the meeting. So thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you so much. There were some questions, but I know that the senator is obviously environmental issues are very important. Is there any legislation that the senator might be working on this year in regards to environmental issues?
Yeah, and it was just announced that he is going to be keeping his chairmanship of the Senate's Environmental Quality Committee. So he's going to be heavily involved in a lot of the state's environmental efforts for the coming 2-year session. He will be continuing to promote legislation to help us reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, reduce our dependency on plastics. Of course, his landmark bill, SB 54, was signed into law last year, and he will probably be doing a cleanup follow-up bill to SB 54 this year, just to give Cal Recycle some better resources as we're transitioning away from single-use packaging over the next decade. So I don't have exact details yet other than that one, but environmental issues will definitely be a prominent focus of his bill package once again.
Okay, sounds great. One of our participants, Ryan Baldino, has a question. Ryan.
Yeah, hi, Dan. Nice to meet you. My name is Ryan Baldino, newly elected city council member here in El Segundo. Our biggest concern, obviously, is the Hyperion treatment plant. There is an environmental issue that's affecting the health of our residents. We've had 70 violations in 2 years. There's been 5 hearings with the AQMD. What help can we expect from Senator Allen's office to address this issue?
Yeah, I have not been the person, the point person on this issue from our office, but I know two of my colleagues have been in regular meetings actually with the city of El Segundo about this. And I believe the senator is considering running a bill specific to this issue. I'll try and find some more details on that bill and put it in the chat once I can find what the latest is.
Thank you, sir.
Great question, Ryan. I don't see any other questions at this point, but Davis, if you wouldn't mind putting your contact information in the chat as well, that would be really, oh, here we go. Zine, you have a question.
Yes, Davis, the power plant here in Redondo Beach is up is subject to foreclosure, and there's going to be a for trustee sale at the end of the month. I'd love to see the senator's office get involved and potentially making a bid for it, because that is a historic wetland site. Could create a regional open space, and I know that the state has already put some money into, or reserved some money into, restoring the wetlands there. So do you guys have that on your radar at all? Because you talk about landmark moves, that would be a major one.
We absolutely have that on our radar. In fact, Senator Allen had a meeting with Assemblymember Marisucci, Mayor Brand, and Councilmember Narenheim back in the fall about this exact issue, in which we also brought in several folks from the State Coastal Conservancy. And they, I believe, are going to be hopefully working together to try and identify a funding partner to gather the rest of the funds that would potentially be needed for the state to try and acquire that land from the current owner.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you, Council Member. All right, Davis, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. We'll go ahead and move forward to the next representative from Senator Stephen Bradford's office. Is Jasmine Leon Guerrero available? Sorry. Available?
Yes. No. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Hello. Good morning, South Bay COG Chair and everyone. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Jasmine Leon Guerrero. I'm the district representative for State Senator Stephen Bradford. I hope everyone is staying healthy and dry. As of now, I know today's a sunny day, but in the coming weeks, hope everyone's staying safe. Anyway, the senator, just a few updates. He is the chair. He's no longer chair of public safety. He is confirmed to be chair of the Senate Energy, Utility, and Commissions Committee. And he is also now vice chair of the California Legislative Black Caucus. And he is also still a member of the Reparations Task Force. He represents the 35th Senate District. And I know there's a little bit of confusion with the district lines and the new lines. So just a little rundown for all incoming senators and assembly persons, the lines are the new lines, whereas all the incumbents, like the Senator Bradford, the lines stay the same until the next election. So I hope that's a little bit clear for everyone. As far as legislation, because it's a new session, he just started, we just started last week. So we're still building the legislative package for the senator. But in the past, he's usually focused on equity, inclusion, public safety, and criminal justice reform. So we can expect that from him in the next coming months. However, he did introduce two bills, SB 50. This is in regards to pretextual stops. This is following up and cleaning up on SB 1389, which prohibited police officers from initiating traffic stops for low-level violations unless it was a separate independent basis. So this is just to clarify what constitutes as a low-level violation. And so we're going to be working with some police departments on this and try to get the language a little bit better for everybody to understand. And the next one is SB 51. This is the Cannabis Provisional Licenses bill. This authorizes the Department of Cannabis Control to issue provisional or temporary licenses for equity retailers. And they will be able to renew for up to 5 years. And just to be clear, the provisional license does not allow them to conduct business for their establishment. This is just a stepping stone. So only provisional license holders can be awarded final licenses once all the requirements are met. So this just gives the equity retailers more time to get all their ducks in a row. And as far as the Reparations Task Force, I just wanted to let everyone know that the next meeting is at the end of the month, January 27th and 28th. That's Friday and Saturday. And it's going to be in San Diego. We're not sure exactly where just yet, but It's going to be down there in San Diego. And they released an interim report last year, June 1st. And it basically, if anybody has time to read through it, it's very easy to read. They do have a summary of it, which is just like 4 or 5 pages. And I think it would be very helpful for people to understand what's going on. And this is a really hallmark report that, first in the nation that's happening. So this is really important, I think, for everybody to know. But the report basically focuses on identifying the countless incidents of slavery and the compounding harms and its effects. The interim report also builds on months and months of public hearings, expert witnesses, the public testimony and witness testimony, and numerous of records that have been submitted. And it also includes a set of preliminary recommendations that the legislature could adopt to remedy all of this. So that's the preliminary report, and the final report is due this year, July 1st. And if anybody has any questions or and would like to leave a public comment, please feel free to call our office or attend the meeting either in person or virtually on the 27th and 28th. And let me see. So as far as the questions, the first question about laws on land use, I genuinely have no idea. Like I said, the majority of the bills haven't been introduced. So as far as the senator's bills, he doesn't have any bills on that he's thinking to introduce. Maybe some of my colleagues might know of.
And Jasmine, you don't need to answer all 4 questions necessarily.
Oh, okay.
If you just want to pick 1 or 2, and that's fine.
Oh, sure. Okay. I mean, I think the disasters, drought, the question is important. So the governor, like mentioned, just released his budget proposal, and one of its top priorities were fighting climate change, and that did include protecting Californians from extreme weather, such as floods. So, and I know the governor did mention that he will not be using any of his $22 billion rainy day fund. So we do, and California is in a much different place than it was in the past, thanks largely to the Senate's continued focus on building reserves and paying down debts and not overcommitting to ongoing spending. So the state is really poised to withstand these challenges. And the senator does look forward to building on the administration's proposal to ensure that the safety net and other critical programs aren't being cut and being strengthened. And and as far as the other the programs that you're wanting to do, such as the micromobility devices, we'd be happy to receive your briefing on that. So thank you so much. And if anybody has any questions.
Does anyone have any questions? I don't see any hands going up at this point, but we'd love to get your contact information in the chat if you would. And we very much appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone.
All right, thank you. All right, so is Eric Ponce available from Assemblymember Al Marasucci's office?
Yes, good morning, everyone. My name is Eric Ponce. I am here on behalf of Assemblymember Al Marasucci. So the Assemblymember was confirmed as chair of the Assembly Education Committee. His top priority continues to be public education. He believes in continuing to fight to protect classroom funding for all students to attend public schools in their neighborhoods, regardless of where they live. The Assemblymember is still putting his bill package for the year together, so we welcome any bill ideas or budget requests that anyone may have. But disclaimer, the budget request might not be granted because we are in a deficit. And the Assemblymember has already introduced 4 bills. The first one being AB 9, which would accelerate the 2030 greenhouse gas emission target from 40% to 55% below the 1990 levels. The Assemblymember has also introduced AB 23, which is the retail theft bill. The Assemblymember believes that to better hold individuals who participate in organized retail crime accountable, AB 23 will reduce the threshold amount for grand theft and shoplifting from $950 to $400. This would authorize additional stronger tools to judges as they consider the appropriate punishments for these crimes. And again, this bill would also only be effective with voter approval, so it would become a ballot measure. The third bill, being AB 67, is a reintroduction of the Homeless Court Bill, which would establish a competitive grant pilot program administered by the Judicial Council to eligible participants. The grants would be used to establish and expand homeless courts that would provide comprehensive community-based services to achieve stabilization for legal needs and substance abuse issues. And the fourth bill being AB 74, which is it's currently a placeholder bill, but the Assembly member hopes to make it a street takeover street racing bill, which would incentivize illegal street racing and sideshows through forfeiture of assets. Our office is currently working with the LAPD and the City of Los Angeles on the language for the bill. Our office continues to help constituents with DMV and EDD and franchise tax board related cases. We have been receiving a lot of constituent calls regarding the middle class tax refund. So if any constituents are having issues with that, feel free to send them our way and we'll be happy to assist. And yeah, those are all the updates that I have from the Assembly member today.
That was a great rundown. Thank you, Eric. Any questions for the Assemblyman's office? All right, people are being shy today. This is your time to ask questions. All right, we just saw the Assembly member up in Sacramento earlier this week at Contract Cities, and he's always been very generous with his time. So thank him for that. And Eric, thank you for being here today. And if you too could also put your contact information in the chat, we would greatly appreciate it. And hang on through the meeting.
Thank you for having me. I'll go ahead and put the contact information. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Eric. All right, next, I think we have two representatives. I'm not sure who is going to be speaking on behalf of Assembly Member Tina McKinner, either Brandon Stansell or Will Mitchell.
Hi, good morning, everybody. My name is Brandon Stansell. I guess I'm also here with my district director, William Mitchell. I just wanted him to introduce everyone to the COG. This is his first time he just started with us. So I just wanted him to get a quick introduction to see how the meeting works. We'll be kind of tag teaming, but I'll do a majority of the presentation. Excuse me, as far as the Assemblywoman and some of her bill package, as everyone stated on the state side, as far as, the bill package is still starting as far as getting it together, as we just started legislative session. But the Assemblywoman was able to introduce a bill, and that is AB1. And that bill, which would allow legislative staff the choice to join a union and collectively bargain for wages, benefits, and working conditions. So we're very proud of that bill. She had the press conference for that on December 5th. And so we're very excited about that. And like I said, we're still aligning our bill package together for the upcoming legislative session. So I know you're stating that we don't have to answer all the questions, but I will just focus on one in regards to the third question that you guys sent as far as the funding programs that address personal micromobility devices and infrastructure that you guys sent over. So the governor proposed budget slashes a lot of programs and funding that incentivize reducing GHG emissions. We're hopeful that the Assembly and the Senate will work together on this issue to not reduce the funding as much and help create programs for mobility. I will put the information for our legislative director. His name is Sean Porter. And if you guys have any questions from our office, he's more than willing to help and discuss that with you. I will pass over to my district director, Will, who will tell you about an upcoming event that we have pertaining to your second question, actually.
Okay.
Good morning. My name is William Mitchell. I am the new district director. Just started here in December, and happy to meet all of you. We are planning a disaster preparedness fair coming up on March 4th, where we'll have the Red Cross. With all these floodings and things happening, we're going to be addressing local disaster preparedness with the sheriff's office, police and fire and all that. So we will be sending out e-blasts, and we hope to get participation. It'll be district-wide. We're going to have it in Hawthorne, but we're hoping to just help the community to understand and be prepared for particularly the flooding, and we'll have the utility companies there, and it should be a great event. And it's very nice to meet all of you. I hope to be working with you. I put my contact information in the chat, and if anybody needs to reach out, I'm available. Thank you.
Will, thank you so much for joining us, and you too, Brandon, and welcome aboard to the South Bay City Council of Governments. I know our executive director and team are here to help and work with you and your office. And the disaster fair, since obviously Hawthorne is one of our member cities, that'll be an important event for us too. So we could probably get that out in our newsletter as well. So thanks for joining us today. Is there any questions for the Assembly Member's office today? All right, looks like you're getting off easy as well. That's good. But welcome aboard. And we look forward to seeing you guys both in the future.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Is Mark Fuentes from Assembly Member Mike Gibson's office available?
Yes, I'm right here.
Hi, Mark.
Hi, and apologies for not having the camera on. I'm just having some slight issues with my camera at the moment, but nonetheless, I will go ahead and answer the questions that were provided for us for Assemblymember Gibson. And before I get to that, I also just wanted to briefly mention that the Assemblymember is going to be having his swearing-in ceremony this month, January 21st, and that's going to be located over at Los Angeles Harbor College, and it will be taking place at 10 a.m. And again, I just bring this up to just invite any elected official offices or SBCCOG as well to join us in this momentous occasion. And again, we're going to have a lot of on-board guests showing up, and we will be having the City of Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass swear in the Assembly Member during the event. So if you are curious to participate, please feel free to email me. I will leave my information in the chat in a few minutes, so you guys can reach out to me if you are interested in attending. With that being said, I just wanted to say thank you for inviting our office once again to this meeting. It's always a pleasure to be a part of this organization and provide information in regards to the work that the Assembly Member will be doing for this year, 2023. It's crazy to think that we're already in 2023. But with that being said, I will move on to the questions, and I'll start with the first question, which states in regards to it goes over the proposed legislation this year on land use and the trend of taking away control of local cities. They're just the question is asking what the Assembly Member thinks of that, and how cities can have a meaningful dialogue. And to that, the Assembly Member answered that the issue of local control and land use is an issue that the Assembly Member and the office takes very seriously. As a former member of the Carson City Council, the Assembly Member was personally saw a lot of importance for local control, and has consistently voted for legislation that kept control within the city's hands. This year, unfortunately, though, the member does anticipate that there will be more legislation introduced that will decrease the city's ability to run themselves. And with that, the Assembly Member will continue to not support legislation that takes away control from local cities. Again, he does emphasize the importance of cities having their own control over their day-to-day functions, and he supports local 100%. Second question, let's see. Again, he also emphasizes the importance of contacting local representatives in regards to any interest that they need local assistance on. So again, just emphasizing the importance of local and elected official partnership. The second question was, with the continual natural disasters that have been brought up, in the meeting, such as the droughts, fires, power issues, the flash floods as well. Will there be sufficient funds set aside, or are there sufficient funds set aside to address those issues? And to that, the Assembly Member responded, California leadership, the governor, and the federal government have prepared for these disasters by setting aside massive amounts of money in the prior years while we had a budget surplus. And, all these entities have made sure that communication within the state and the federal agencies are strong to ensure that we have a variety of resources and pools of monies to pull from, in light of disasters that we've been, going and facing as of late. And these disasters are hard to predict and will unfortunately keep happening, but the legislators' priority is that we all are prepared to support victims and give them housing, food, and a path forward in situations in dark times such as this. Third question The SBCCOG's local travel network will reduce congestion and GHG emissions, but there are no state policy or funding programs that address personal micromobility devices and infrastructure. CTC members have been briefed and see the promise of this program. Would your office, the Assembly Member's office, like a briefing? And to that, we responded with micromobility devices are an essential and important component to reducing greenhouse gases while increasing the safety of our roads, especially in heavy compacted urban areas. Last year, the Assembly member authored AB 2074, which would have created a rebate program for people who purchase these devices to increase the amount of people that could afford micromobility transportation. The Assembly member's office is passionate about this and would be happy to discuss any way that we could potentially help support these electric vehicles and infrastructure opportunities. Again, please feel free to reach out to us. And we would be more than happy to organize a meeting about this important issue with one of our staff members. Next question is, state programs to deal with climate change are still addressed in silos at the local level. SBCCOG will be asking for state funds to expand Environmental Services Center to develop comprehensive responses to challenges of reducing GHG emissions, promoting EVs, solar energy storage, resilience centers, etc. We hope to have your support on our budget request. And to that question, some member responded with, this year will be an unprecedented time for many of our colleagues, including myself, as we are faced with a budget deficit for the first time since taking office. As of now, the Assembly member's priority is ensuring that none of the programs that are already being offered are defunded. That being said, as the year goes on, financial projections could change, and at that time, we'd be more than happy to discuss potential funding sources for these important programs. And finally, I believe that, we still have a couple more. Federal, in regards to the federal, the question is, the Infrastructure Act is getting implemented in California through which agencies and which projects? And our answer is, this act was truly game-changing in the sheer amount of money that was provided by the federal government, and will fund a variety of projects and industries that will create jobs and bring money back to districts like the Assembly members that are industry heavy. This money will go to funding bridges, increasing road safety with repairs and traffic programs, and increase electric vehicle charging port availability. This money will be used to improve airports, railroads, buses, and ports. Money that will be used to modernize and improve all of these industries to increase the access of affordability for even the most disregarded communities. Most of the funds will be acquired by the California Department of Transportation and will be dispersed accordingly. There are some additional opportunities for local governments to apply for funding for community projects. They have not released how or when that will be possible, but when they do, our office will be there, and we'll be sure to inform all of our partners and organizations that we work very closely with. Next question is, are you optimistic that Congress will be able to function with the strong division we've seen? And our response to that is, if there is one thing that we've learned in the past 2 years, it's that democratic institutions are strong. Our government is not controlled by the fringes of either party, but instead by the collective. This was how our democracy was always meant to run and will continue to do so. The Assembly member urges that members of either party, anyone that disrupts the ability of the government to represent the American people, to remember why they're in their seats in the first place. The constituents that have elected officials have to be put on top, and their priorities need to be represented, and their identities need to be maintained. And if you aren't doing so as an elected, then there's no reason to hold the position. Again, words from the Assembly member. Again, those are all the questions that we received. And again, we're very happy to respond to them and to provide you insight on what the Assembly member is thinking of. Again, we apologize that the member couldn't attend this meeting today, but definitely we would love to invite the Assembly member, once he does have availability, to attend one of your next meetings in the near future. But again, with that, I conclude my little report. And again, I will leave my information in the chat for anyone that needs needs to get into contact with me. And again, I just want to say a big thank you to South Bay Cities for inviting our office again. It's always a delight to be here with you guys, and we're always here to support you.
Thank you, Mark. That was so thorough. It was wonderful. Thank you for that. And we appreciate the assembly member taking the time to work with you on those answers, which, like I said, were very thorough. And for anyone that's on this call, everyone is welcome to attend our board meetings. And we love to have that dialogue and love to hear from your offices. Are there any questions for Mark? Okay, it looks like no additional questions. Mark, thank you for your time. Okay, and I think I saw Brian earlier from Assembly Member Josh Lowenthal's office. Brian, take it away.
Sorry, I had to find the unmute button as my notifications pile up here. Hey guys, Brian Minigino, Assembly Member Josh Lowenthal's office. It is good to be back working with you guys. First got my first dose of South Bay COG back in 2008, working for Warren Furutani, and spent some time in the speaker's office most recently, and now back working for Josh Lowenthal as his district director. Just got elected, just getting our feet settled, building out our team, getting our legislative agenda ready to go. Look forward to working with you guys. Just a couple quick little things. We are going to be doing a district swearing in. We'll make sure, Jackie, you get all that information, and if you could pass it out to everybody, it's going to be sometime next month down here. Couple things, just legislative priorities, obviously with this district. We've got the Port of Long Beach, we've got a large portion of the city of Carson. Goods movement is a huge issue for us. We truly believe that we can keep our ports competitive. We're seeing a lot of cargo diverted from the West Coast to the East Coast. Those are, that risks, jobs in our community. But the sustainability, that economic activity at the port doesn't have to be at the expense of communities. So over the next, knock on wood, 12 years, we're going to be working with the port, customers, the goods movement industry on how we can remain competitive, increase our competitivity, but do so not at the expense of our communities. Another big priority for Mr. Lowenthal is going to be digital privacy. He comes from the tech world. He was president of freeconferencecall.com and an executive at Mint Mobile. So telecommunications, digital privacy, those are going to be issues that, 10 years ago, we just kind of would log into something, agree to them tracking us and set it and forget it. But now we're at a point where companies have monetized that, and that information stays with you. And how are we holding them accountable? How are our youth impacted by that? Some member Lowenthal's first bill was AB 10, which deals with body shaming and requiring school districts to develop some curriculum to deal with body shaming. Social media, the internet, we all see the Instagram ads, we hear stories about cyberbullying. All that stuff has impacts on our youth, on our students. And so we need to teach not only the teachers, but the students those warning signs so that we can get those addressed before they parlay into larger, more serious problems, both mental health and physical health. Just on a couple of the questions that you guys had sent over, one thing we've said all along is that there are a lot of good cities doing good work on housing, homelessness, you name it. And those cities need to be supported, and we look forward to doing so. But there's a lot of cities that want to do nothing and push that problem to other cities and other communities. And that's where we've got a problem, and those are the cities that we want to go after and hold accountable. We want flexibility. We want cities to have the flexibility to do what's right. A lot of them are. And when we see other cities not doing so, putting other communities at risk, we want to hold those communities accountable. And just that nobody's talked about this disaster money in great length. Hopefully we have enough money set aside. The nature of disasters is we never really know. So hopefully we've got enough. It's interesting. I was talking to Catalina Island the past couple of days, and I think one thing we take for granted is they're 20 miles offshore, and they get their food. They get their groceries by barge, by plane. And when we have weather like we've had the past 10 days, those boats aren't running. People can't come back and forth to the island, and so their grocery store shelves are bare. And over the next couple of months, we've got to have some serious conversations about it's normal for them, but it doesn't need to be normal. So we look forward to having those conversations.
That's terrific, Brian, and welcome back to the group. And I've known you as a problem solver for all these years, so it's neat hearing the unique things you're working on right now. It looks like Zane has a question for you, council member.
Howdy, thank you. I know that Assemblymember Lowenthal is not our assembly member, but to your point about holding cities accountable, Redondo Beach is a city that has done a ton for homeless outreach, including our homeless shelter and homeless court, and yet we get hit with these state mandates for additional housing in an already over-densified area with zero support from the state. And I realize I'm saying this at a time of the first budget deficit in a while, but zero support from the state when our police officers are demanding a raise, 6%, 3%, 3%, firefighters going to demand more. All our employees are going to demand more money. So the state needs to do more to support us in servicing the new housing that they're sending our way and requiring us to put in place to deal with this housing crisis, as well as the water needs of these new communities. And if they're not able to do that, then they need to stop forcing it down to the densest communities in the state.
Yeah, and the cities that aren't doing their fair share and that are forcing the unhoused into onto your streets, they need to be held accountable. We deal with there are a lot of cities that are trying to do the right things, and those are the ones that should get the most amount of help, and the ones who don't want to make tough decisions. Those are the ones that we need to be watching and holding and truly hold accountable.
All right, thanks.
All right. Doesn't look like there's any further
No,
questions.
I have a question.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Jackie, please.
Okay. I think that what Councilman Abaji was saying was that Redondo Beach is doing its
absolutely.
Wait, but what you said, but I think part of the problem is that all cities are being treated alike.
Right.
And so of course, the city, there are cities that look like they're not doing as much, but every city has a different kind of circumstance. And I think what cities are saying is, sit down with us and let us tell you, Rancho Palos Verdes has an entire side of the city that's falling into the ocean. Let us sit down and tell you our anomalies so that, and so that there are good cities and there are bad cities, but there are also cities that are trying hard, but they actually don't have the opportunities to do it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, no.
Thank you, Jackie.
Okay.
Thank you, Jackie. Brian, thank you so much for your time. And as I've asked the others, if you could share your contact information in the chat with the group, that would be much appreciated.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, Brian. It looks like that's the full gamut of our state representatives, and we're very fortunate today to have federal representatives with us as well. My understanding is that Congress member Maxine Waters is with us. Is that correct?
That's correct. I'm on.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me. I haven't had a chance to listen to all of the presentations, but I know that some of the information that I will share with you today, even though it's, coming from the feds, may be helpful to you. With that, let me say good morning to everyone, and thank you so much for having me on. Chair John Cruikshank, I thank you for all of the work that you do, and I thank you, Jackie Bacharach, my friend, for inviting me today. I'm so glad to be here again to update you on some of the work I've been doing in Congress to improve communities across the South Bay. First, let me start with housing. It's such a big issue for everybody. A chronic undersupply of affordable housing and rising housing costs remain major challenges throughout the country, especially in California, and more specifically in the South Bay area. For instance, tent encampments can be found in cities throughout all of Greater Los Angeles and throughout the South Bay, as well as other parts of Los Angeles County and the entire state. While we know that the state of California continues to struggle with a worsening homelessness crisis, I'm pleased that homelessness has decreased by 3% in the South Bay since last year and 9% nationwide since 2010. So despite this progress, during the pandemic alone, California and the South Bay saw a more than 20% spike in housing costs, which not only led to people leaving the state for more affordable communities, but also pushed home ownership further out of the reach for so many. As chairwoman of the House Financial Services Committee, I made it a top priority to secure robust funding in fair and affordable housing to address our nation's worsening housing and homelessness crisis, as well as to combat rising inflation. We made significant strides through the CARES Act, which many of you are familiar with, and the American Rescue Plan Act, both of which were signed into law by the president in response to COVID-19 pandemic. We also made additional progress in the omnibus funding package for fiscal year 2023, which was signed into law by the president last month in order to fund continuing government operations for the current fiscal year. Through the CARES Act, I secured $4 billion in assistance for people experiencing homelessness. For example, in South Bay communities, this funding is being used to help people experiencing homelessness move into housing by providing them with services and financial supports, such as money to cover apartment security deposits and moving costs, as well as housing search assistance. I'm also proud that we were able to secure billions of dollars to help stabilize families and communities nationwide with critical housing relief through the American Rescue Plan Act. This bill included an additional $21.6 billion for the Emergency Rental Assistance Program, $10 billion for the Homeowner Assistance Fund, $5 billion for 70,000 new housing choice vouchers, and $5 billion to help states and local communities provide services and housing for people coordinating or at risk of homelessness. Of this funding, California received more than $5 billion in rental assistance, which has helped over 340,000 families remain stably housed, and $1 billion to launch the state's Homeowner Assistance Fund, the largest in the country. The Los Angeles area also received the largest share of new housing vouchers, which are targeted to people experiencing or at risk of homelessness and will benefit communities also in the South Bay. As many of you know, my committee worked tirelessly last Congress to secure $150 billion in fair and affordable housing investments through what was known as the Build Back Better Act, which passed the House, but ultimately was blocked by Senator Manchin in the Senate and therefore never became law. I had so many hopes for Build Back Better because it was going to deal with the increase in funds for affordable housing. It was going to deal with, repair and renovations for public housing. It was going to deal with Section 8. It was ideal. We're going to continue to work, but, there are those who don't think that we should be spending substantial money on housing and homelessness. I disagree. It is a top priority of mine. And so we didn't get the Build Back Better Act, but we're not going to give up. We're going to continue to work to get the kind of resources that are needed in all of our communities, and especially in our smallest cities and towns that oftentimes are not in the position to compete, for some of these funds. And so moving from there, this historic level of funding in Build Back Better would have created more than 1.3 million affordable homes, assisted over 860,000 families, helped end homelessness, and brought home ownership back within reach for first-generation homeowners. Fortunately, we were able to secure several Build Back Better housing priorities through the recent omnibus appropriations package for fiscal year 2023. We were able to get $50 million for the new housing choice vouchers to help affordable housing, and an additional 11,700 household nationwide, and 85 million in competitive community development block grants to states and local governments, metropolitan planning organizations, and other eligible entities to incentivize the creation of more affordable housing. So we got something. We didn't get everything that we wanted in Build Back, but that's what we did. We're able to get. In addition to that, 225 million to competitive grants to preserve and revitalize manufactured housing communities for the benefit of residents and long-term affordability of their communities. This funding would help many mobile home residents like those in Torrance and other communities throughout the South Bay area who rely on mobile homes as a means of affordable housing. We have made significant strides that have been helped to stabilize families, house people experiencing homelessness, and stymie a recession early in the pandemic. There is still so much work to be done. And as the lead Democrat on the Financial Services Committee, this Congress, it remains a top priority to work with my colleagues across the aisle and in the Senate to fully address our nation's affordable housing crisis and ensure every family has a place to call home. I want to talk with you about some of the issues that perhaps you don't hear a lot about, but they're important issues. And I want to talk about cryptocurrency for a little bit. As many of you have seen, the failures of crypto projects like Terra USD and Celsius, BlockFi, and most recently and significantly, FTX and Alameda Research have strengthened the need for Congress and regulators to take steps to protect those who have invested their hard-earned money in cryptocurrencies, including investors in the South Bay. We have all seen the steady increase in advertising for crypto, from the crypto arena to Bitcoin ATMs in Redondo Beach, Hawthorne, Torrance, and Lawndale. I've been fighting to ensure that with the ever-increasing precedence of crypto, fraud does not harm communities in the South Bay, and the fight will continue until those who have deceived us, like FTX and other failed firms with worthless digital assets, are remediated. Under my leadership, the past 4 years, my committee scrutinized the growth and popularity of crypto. Last Congress, I created a digital assets working group comprised of the Democratic members of the committee to delve into issues emerging in digital asset space. And when the Biden administration urged Congress to safeguard the economy from risk to our economy from so-called stable coins, I quickly jumped into action with my Republican counterpart to develop legislation and expect to continue those efforts this Congress. We did a lot of negotiating. We came very close working with the opposite side of the aisle on stable coins. Following the sudden failure of FTX, I began an investigation and organized a hearing to understand the collapse and how to return funds to the millions of harmed investors and consumers, including those who live in South Bay communities. I'm committed to continuing this investigation, this Congress, in addition to determining what nationwide set of rules are needed to rein in the blatant fraud we continue to see in the crypto industry. We must not only investigate, we must legislate. I stand committed to working with the incoming Republican chairman to create clear rules and enforcement that can rein in the lawlessness we are seeing in crypto and protect all of our communities in the South Bay from further harm. Let me move on to consumer protection. Since arriving in Congress, consumer protection has been a major legislative priority of mine and has been helpful to President Biden's appointee, that is Director Rohit Chopra, who is the leading Consumer Financial Protection Bureau this year. We refer to it as CFPB. While congressional Republicans have planned to do everything in their power to halt the agency's work to protect consumers, the CFPB actually enjoys broad support throughout the country from not only Democrats, but from Republicans and independents as well. According to a bipartisan poll that was released just last month, nearly 80% of the people support the CFPB and want the CFPB to continue to doing its job, including 75% of Republican voters surveyed. The last hearing I held as chairwoman of the House Financial Services Committee was with Director Chopra, so we could get the latest update from the Consumer Bureau, including how they're ensuring people aren't ripped off or lose access to their money. We learned that since the agency was established in 2010, the CFPB has secured $15 billion in monetary relief for harmed consumers, relating to more than 183 million affected accounts where a financial institution ripped off a consumer. While I'm working to get South Bay specific data, what I can tell you is that last July, the CFPB fined our Bank of America for inappropriately freezing the accounts of at least 350,000 Californians and required Bank of America to compensate harmed consumers who were unable to access their unemployment benefits while struggling to make ends meet during the pandemic. I'm also aware of how inflation has increased the cost of everything, items such as milk and gas, something I've taken the Fed chair to task on, especially since his rate increases have dramatically increased housing costs. I'm glad that the CFPB followed my committee's lead to focus on excessive fees, such as overdraft charges by the bank that leave consumers with little to nothing left in their bank accounts. Due to the collective efforts of my committee and the CFPB's, consumers will have roughly $3 billion every year as a result of the changes many large banks have made to reduce or eliminate all those overdraft fees. I've also pushed for long overdue changes in our broken credit reporting system. In response to reforms we passed in the House of Representatives, as well as strong oversight my committee conducted last summer, the nationwide credit bureaus such as Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion finally agreed to remove medical debts that were sent to debt collectors and paid off an estimated 70% of medical debt information from consumers' credit reports. We have more work to do, but no one should be prevented from buying or renting a home or getting a small business loan because they got sick. In the coming year, I will keep fighting to defend the CFPB while working with them to protect consumers across the South Bay, expand borrower protections wherever and whenever we, with respect to credit reporting, debt collection, junk fees, mobile wallet fraud, and small business loans, and so much more. And let me just wrap up. Finally, I'm pleased to report that I was able to secure several projects in the South Bay through my district. And you know, we used to have what was called earmarks. They're now called community projects. And this is the second set. Let me just run through. $5 million for a new teen center and multiple services building, as well as citywide traffic sign upgrades in Lawndale. $4 million for traffic improvements along Crenshaw Boulevard in Hawthorne. almost 3.5 million for the municipal water system in Inglewood, 1 million for a community center in Gardena, 750,000 for temporary housing and homeless services in Torrance. In addition, I secured 4.7 million for a stormwater project in Lamita, which was included in the water resources development, something they have been working on for years to get clean and safe water to Lamita. I will be contacting each of these cities in the near future to provide further details on these exciting projects. In conclusion, despite all of this work, there is still much to be done to improve the lives of all of our families and communities across the South Bay. And so I look forward to continue the work this next Congress to address the region's most pressing issues. I didn't have a chance to talk about everything and the work that we do in transportation and on and on and on. But if we continue to have these kinds of meetings, I will be able to get more in and explain more about the vast business of the federal government, particularly the Financial Services Committee and other issues that I'm concerned about. I didn't talk about issues outside of financial services too much, but I want you to know we got to fight to save Social Security from being privatized. That is so very important. We got to fight on, the privacy that people deserve. We've got to fight on many of these issues, and I'm in the fight all the way. Thank you for all the time that you've allotted to me, and feel free to call me for questions. And if you have time today and you want to ask any, I'll be happy to answer them.
Congress member, that was an incredible update. Thank you for all your hard work. And we probably should just do an entire hour and a half just for you to come back with all that terrific information. If you wouldn't mind, if you want to put your contact information or have one of your staff members put contact information in the chat, I'm sure people would love to contact you. And like I said, we should probably give you a bigger block of time next time.
Well, thank you so very much. We will follow up to make sure that people can contact us. Thank you
so much.
You're welcome.
All right. I know that Jeanette Christian is with us from Senator Dianne Feinstein's office. Jeanette.
Hi, good morning. Thank you. Thanks for having me today. It's always hard to follow the Congress member Waters, but I'll do my best. My name is Jeanette Christian. I cover Los Angeles and Orange County for Senator Feinstein. I can be quick in our updates. We're now in the 118th Congress, so Senate will go back in about 2 weeks, and we're still working on the bills to introduce, and the next meeting I can give you a full update on some bills we're introducing and ways you can be supportive. During that time, the next 2 weeks, the Senate committees, they're still being assigned, but we expect the senator to continue with her current assignments: Appropriations, Judiciary Committee, Intelligence, and Rules Administration. At the end of last year, some of you might have seen Congress finally passed the fiscal year 23 appropriation bills. So I want to share a little bit more about what was covered. California won really big in the government spending bill. We were able to get a lot of funding for wildfires, drought, ending homelessness, and climate change. More importantly, though, I think some of the local cities here and the COG would be interested that we got 337 million in congressionally directed spending projects. Some cities here on this call were able to be funded by Senator Feinstein. So shout out to Torrance and Ranchos Palos Verdes, who worked really hard on some of their projects. And a lot of committees here submitted great projects that were able to make it through all the committees and all the negotiations. So we're really happy to see local projects get funded. And I look forward to working with all the cities this year as we have another process come up to make your projects go forward. And if you have any questions, I'm always happy to work with you to come see a project. I know with Palos Verdes, I went out to see the landslides, and we're able to kind of take pictures and share with the subcommittee the importance of getting funding. So just wanted to offer that. I'll put my information in the chat. And I think I saw in your agenda that you wanted me to do some handouts. So I have a 117th Congress accomplishment handout. So that's 2 years of legislative work. It's like 14 pages, so I won't review them all here, but some of the big bills that we were able to pass last Congress were protecting marriage equality. We reauthorized Violence Against Women, the Homeless Personal Care Products Act. There's a lot of wildfire bills. We had a lot of really great bills Senator Feinstein authored that were able to be passed and put into law. So as we move forward, happy to go into detail if you're curious about any of those bills and share a little bit more. So I'll drop that in the link. And then I believe the question you asked for the federal agency or federal government was about the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. And that's a 1.2 trillion Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act signed into law 2021. And you're asking which agencies are implementing it and how California is getting the funding. It's a little bit more of a complicated answer because there's a lot of agencies that will be putting out this funding. It's a lot of money. So the big agencies you'll have to look for are Department of Transportation, Commerce, Interior, have some of the bulk of what the Infrastructure Act is going to be funding in California. I can provide a fact sheet of what California should be getting, but basically, I think someone in the state covered it, but repairing roads, bridges, EV chargers, we'll see some of our service lines and pipes, clean drinking water, protection against some weather events, so cyber attacks, broadband. They're just kind of in broad categories that are going to be funded, and they're going to be through different federal agencies. And typically, these federal agencies actually fund this. They go through states, and then the states dole out the grants to individual cities. There's different grants have different opportunities. So if you're interested in one particular grant or you're wondering how your city can apply, I can do some helpful links, or you can just contact me directly and we can take a look at some opportunities that might be useful to you. We're always happy to write letters of support for federal agencies. We don't do it for state grants, we do it for federal grants. So like an example of local areas that were able to not go through the state, but like the Port of LA or the Port of Long Beach, or the airports, or even apply to some funding for the Infrastructure Act, or able to get some funding. So there's a lot of ways that we can be helpful. So happy to chat and answer any questions if you have any.
Well, we, as Rancho Palos Verdes Mayor Pro Tem, I can attest that your office has been very helpful. We appreciate that. Are there any questions for Jeanette? All right, well, thank you so much for the update. And I guess if the file is something that's not too huge, if you wanted to drop the file into the chat, we could grab that as well, or you could send it through to Jackie's office.
Yeah, we'll do so. Thanks.
All right, thank you so much. Okay, Karen Calderon is with Congress member Ted Lieu's office. Karen?
Yeah, hi everyone, good morning. I'm very excited to be here with you all and see a lot of friendly faces. So I know lots already been covered, but I guess one of the main things I wanted to share with you all are the projects that were funded in the omnibus. So Congressman was actually able to have all 15 of his community project funding requests funded in the final bill. And some of those projects are directed specifically towards the South Bay, so I'll go over what some of those are. So the largest project that was funded and that we requested funding for was $3.45 million for the city of Los Angeles for the Hyperion Water Reclamation Modernization Project. I know that's been a really big concern in the South Bay and affecting a lot of the residents in El Segundo. And so that we're really happy to have that funding and see how we can implement some repairs. And we're working with the city of El Segundo to discuss some priorities and then relaying that back to the city of LA and kind of seeing how we can direct that funding to best support the residents and the quality of life for some of our constituents. We also were able to designate $1 million for the Boys and Girls Club of the Los Angeles Harbor San Pedro for developing a digital program for student support. Another $1 million for the city of Hermosa Beach for mobile mental health crisis response teams. $2 million for the County of Los Angeles to Incarceration Office for youth job training programs and supportive services. $1 million for the Friendship Foundation in Redondo Beach for inclusive programs for students with disabilities. Another $1 million for the Manhattan Beach Safe Cycling Project. $1 million for the Torrance Temporary Housing Program. And then $1.6 million for the UCLA Change Carbon Sequestration pilot program. And a lot of that research is also going to be done in the South Bay area. I know that we're kind of on a time crunch, so I'll try to keep my notes short and sweet. But another big thing that the Congressman has been kind of championing is research down in the South Bay. So he led a letter to the California Coastal Caucus requesting that the FDA test seafood in Southern California for DDT. And therefore, like we really think it's imperative that we continue doing our best research to understand the effects of the dumping grounds and the impact that it's having on human health. And so that's one of the initiatives that he's taken. I do want to answer the questions that you submitted regarding the Infrastructure Act. And so I know Jeanette kind of covered a lot of it, but it's looking like California is expected to receive 41.9 billion from now through the end of 2026 in funding. And a lot of the funding from the infrastructure bill is essentially going to be given in the form of formula grants. And so that's why California is getting such a big portion of that funding, and 29.5 billion of that money is going to be specifically for highway and bridge repairs. But in addition to the formula grants, there's also going to be competitive grants that state and local governments can apply for. And so that money isn't necessarily earmarked to go to any particular location, but states and local governments are able to request funding if they have specific projects that they want to work on, and the federal government will be determining who gets those funds. And so again, like the major agencies that will be distributing those funds are the Department of Transportation, the Department of Energy, and the Environmental Protection Agency. And we also see that a lot of that funding is going to be coming down in the form of electric vehicle chargers and trying to reduce emissions and kind of build up that infrastructure in the state of California as well. And then to the second question about how optimistic is Congressman that Congress is going to be able to function given the strong divisions that we've seen. And on that, I just want to say that I think party polarization, and we've seen an increase in divisions over the past several years. But the 117th Congress, this past Congress, was actually one of the most productive Congresses in all of US history. And in this past Congress, we're able to see the passing of the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act and the Inflation Reduction Act, which really has been the most significant climate legislation in all of US history. And so while we see these strong divisions, we're hopeful that we're actually able to accomplish a lot and pass landmark legislation. And recently Congressman Liu has been elected as the vice chair of the Democratic caucus, and so he will be one of the leaders of the Democratic Party in the House of Representatives. And so we're really looking forward to his leadership and seeing how we can pass bipartisan legislation and unite Democrats in the House and continue to do the good work that we've seen in the past couple of years and continue to make these changes. So thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to take any questions.
Karen, thank you so much for your time today. Any questions for Karen? Okay, I don't see any. Thank you so much for your time. And if you also want to leave your contact information in the chat, we would love to have that. We appreciate you coming out this morning.
Of course, thank you.
Casey Hervey with Congressmember Nanette Diaz-Barragán's office, if you're available, Casey. Because I hope I'm pronouncing your first name right.
You are. Awesome.
Okay, good.
Hi, everyone. Yes, as he mentioned, I'm Casey Hervey with Representative Barragán's office. Jeanette and Karen covered the questions very well, but I just want to add on to question 2, and I'll repeat the question. Are you optimistic that Congress will be able to function with the strong divisions we have seen? And the Congresswoman responded that with last week's election of the Speaker of the House, there is some general concern, but she remains optimistic and anticipates bipartisan support for a couple issues like cybersecurity and research for Alzheimer's treatments. She's also looking forward to continuing to fight for infrastructure investments and the Job Acts and IRA funds to be spent on shovel-worthy projects that will help communities meet their climate, health, and equity goals. Moving on to some of the general updates, the Congresswoman was officially voted chair of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus. She served as the vice chair in the last Congress. And as chair, she plans to take CHC on the road to hear directly from Latino communities about the issues impacting them. So it's going to be a busy year with her traveling up and down. And she plans to share what CHC has been working on in Congress for them. And she also hopes and has a goal to work with President Biden to increase diversity in the White House. Next, we have redistricting. So we did lose a couple areas with redistricting, and those Areas were Watts and Compton, and we gained West Carson, Harbor Gateway South, and parts of Harbor City. And we also lost Willowbrook. The Carson and the LA Harbor area will remain in the district, as well as parts of Long Beach and Southeast LA. So as the field representative, I cover those harbor areas. So I'll put my information in the chat later. So if you have any inquiries or questions, you can feel free to reach out to me. It was my colleague Sean, but now that I'm here, I'll be covering those. And then finally, just some general wins in the federal spending bill for 2023. We secured over 20 million for projects in the CA 44, and then some of which are 4 million for the Boys and Girls Club of Los Angeles Harbor, 2 million for the city of Carson, 375,000 for Harbor Interface Services, and just a variety. I have a document with them all listed, so you all be able to take a look at that. And the Congresswoman also led efforts to increase funding for several important federal programs. I won't go over all of them, but one of which is 15 million to increase outdoor recreation legacy partnership, and 7 million to increase for the Energy Future Grants Program, which supports clean energy, microgrids, and underserved communities. So that's our general update. It's very brief. Thank you all for having me.
Thank you so much for your time this morning and a great update. We appreciate that. Any questions? I think people have gotten shy at the end of the meeting here, so it looks like no questions, but thank you so much for your time this morning and the update. Next up, we're happy to have our friend Jeff Kiernan. He's a representative from the League of California Cities. And Jeff, of course, we have about 15 minutes left. So if you could leave us about 5 minutes for a wrap up, we'd appreciate it. Jeff?
Absolutely. I'll try to be very quick, and I am dropping some information into the chat. Hopefully those links will all work, so you can kind of continue to read up on what we're doing. But Jeff Kiernan with the League of California Cities. I cover the Las Virgenes, Malibu, South Bay, and West Side cities here in LA County. What Cal Cities is working on right now, I've got links in the chat that show our January newsletter for LA County that just came out this morning. Many of the city officials on here hopefully got that in their inboxes while this meeting was going on. We also have the Cal Cities legislative book that has information on all the bills that passed last year that affect cities. The introduction to that also is about a 7 or 8 page legislative year in review, which might be of interest. Some of the rest of it gets a little bit into the weeds, but that is a good reference point to what happened last year. And then the last link there is the advocacy priorities for our organization for this year. Right at the moment, we are working on a lot of conferences. We have our new mayors and council members academies that are taking place both in Northern California and Southern California. Really important to get those newly electeds up to speed. Educational programs are a core part of what Cal Cities does, as well as advocacy and networking opportunities. So we have those going on for the new mayors and council members, and then city managers conference coming up next month. Elsewhere, obviously, we're looking at the governor's budget proposal that came out the other day. If you watched the presentation, which probably didn't make it all the way to the Q&A, but the governor got very animated when a reporter asked him about an ongoing source of funding for homelessness. Cities are really trying to step up, do our best, but we do have to, if we're only giving money every year, that means it's really difficult to have ongoing programs. So that's something that we're going to continue to work with the legislature on. Hopefully if we can't convince the governor, we hopefully can convince the legislature to help us with an ongoing source of funding. So we can have some of those projects that might take a multi-year approach to homelessness. Right now, actually, on another Zoom call, our policy committee members are working to get oriented on what the work is coming for the rest of the year. Some of the work that I know they're going to be working on already, because it was part of our General Assembly at our annual conference last year, is taking and evaluating the Our Neighborhood Voices initiative. Our Cal City's board is also going to be looking at and studying whether we can put on an alternative local land use control ballot measure in 2024. So that's something we're going to be working on in the next several months, really trying to figure out what we can build together in that space. So that's kind of what we're working on. Hopefully you'll take a moment to look over the newsletter, see some of the budget information, the analysis that's going on there, but I'm happy to leave it there and take some questions for everyone.
Oh, great. Actually, before we get to Councilman Obaji's question, why don't you tell the group, maybe most everyone knows you, but the League of California Cities represents cities up and down the entire coast. How many cities do you represent?
Yeah, I have 24 cities that I represent. We have 400 and I believe 78 or 77 cities that are represented across the state. And really what we do is focus on education, advocacy, and opportunities for networking for all city officials, council members, city managers, public works directors, up and down, all the different directors that you'll find in any city. So we really do just, we're the resource that helps educate and advocate for these city officials.
Fantastic. And the reason we have you is the South Bay City Council of Government considers the League of Cities a great partner, and we work together on quite a bit of different important issues that you had just gone through. I don't see Councilman Obaji anymore unless, do you still have a question? Okay, great.
Yeah, hey Jeff. Question, looking at that email that you all sent out, it said regarding the shortfall, in a big win for cities, it does not include any mention of redirecting city funds to help address the state budget shortfalls. Is that something we anticipate that we should be anticipating could foreseeably occur in the next, I don't know, in the next 6 months or a year, I guess the next budget cycle, that they're going to start to pull from city monies?
Historically, when the state has large deficits, they absolutely do come after city funds. City funds, property taxes, sales taxes, those all go up to the state and then get redistributed back to us. We did pass a ballot measure, back in 2010 now, that helped protect some of those funds for those funds that are collected locally should be spent locally. That was the basis of that initiative. But they have found some ways around that. One of the budget requests we had last year was seeking to get unfunded state mandates reimbursed. We haven't seen a wide-scale reimbursement of those funds since I believe 2004. That is a lot of money that is sitting up in the coffers in Sacramento. When they had their record surplus last year, we made sure to ask for those funds, but the governor and the legislature did not find a way to make. I think it was about a $600 million ask. They did not find a way to put that funding in. So. We're still going to be asking for that. They obviously have a deficit now, but we have to make sure to protect those local funds and make sure that the state's not balancing their budget on the backs of local government.
Got it. Just seems like we're really on the defensive, and maybe there's nothing that we can do about it, but we're asking for funding of unfunded mandates, and then thankful that they didn't take money away from us when they have a budget shortfall.
It's something we always have to watch out for. It's one of the biggest things that happens during the budget session when they have a deficit is they start sort of chipping away at some of the money, and not all the money that we should be getting comes back down from Sacramento.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further questions for Jeff? I don't see any. Jeff, thank you so much for your time today and the updates. We always appreciate it. This time we were going to leave for any additional public comments. Does anyone have any additional thoughts or comments they would like to share with the group before we adjourn? Going once? All right, looks like nobody else. There's a lot of information this morning. I appreciate everyone being with us today. We're going to be adjourning to our next quarterly update. Our executive director might want to say a few words before we leave, but our next meeting will be April 13th. And it'll be the same potential format. We might be hybrid, some in person and virtual. And then also please follow us on Twitter at South Bay CCOG and Facebook at SBCCOG. And I really appreciate everyone's time. Jackie, any final words?
Final words is we hope to see you all at the General Assembly on March 23rd. It's free and legislators can have tables if you let us know. We might have a legislative table where you can put information there. So we're excited about it. We hope you'll join us.
That's right. And we solve problems through dialogue like this. So the COG really appreciates everyone having this open dialogue so we can hear what you're doing. We're here to work with you, and have a great rest of your week. Thanks, everyone.